get started? Yeah.
So hi everyone, welcome. This is obviously Retrofit Assessments Explained, our webinar on the retrofit assessment process as part of Retrofit Action Week. Throughout the webinar, if you want to pop anything in the chat, please do. You should be able to find that on the bottom right of your screen. And there is also in the activities or tools setting, I'm not sure what it's called on different devices, there is a Q&A box. If you want to pop any questions in there throughout, please do, and we'll get to answering at the end. Or if you can't find that, do just put them in the chat and we'll get to them. And I'll pass over to Tegan now to deliver the webinar.
Hi there, my name is Tegan. I'm the Operations Coordinator at Building Energy Experts. Like Liv said, we're delivering this webinar as part of Retrofit Action Week Southwest. And this presentation basically aims to give you a better idea of what retrofit is, what's involved in a retrofit assessment, and how they can help you upgrade your home. So just about us to start, we're a sustainability consultancy firm based in Bristol, but we operate nationwide. We work across multiple intersectional disciplines that each respectively play their part in the retrofit process, and we'll discuss in this presentation. So to get started, could anyone kind of give me a definition or an idea of what they think retrofit is? Feel free to put your answers in the chat or put your hand up and we can answer or get that. If you don't have an idea, that's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah. What Olivia said there, that's basically what we define as retrofit. So the general definition is improvement work on an existing building to improve its energy efficiency. Obviously, retrofit's become a bit of a buzzword in recent years. I think lots of people mention retrofit, lots of people talk about retrofit, but it's really important to nail down what it actually is. And that definition is retrofit at its simplest, just any improvement work on an existing building to improve its energy efficiency, whether it's 100 years old or 10 years old. So now you know what retrofit is and what it aims to achieve, but why should you do it? And how does it benefit you? So the first reason to consider retrofit are the energy efficiency improvements, which I think are probably the most broadcast reason to look into retrofit. So the retrofit process itself highlights inefficient areas of the home and how they can be remediated. So fixing issues like inefficient insulation or heating systems that can reduce your energy bills by lowering the amount of energy needed to keep your house warm and comfortable. So when you're doing that, you're therefore reducing your carbon footprint, and that's that key step in reaching the net zero goal, and then also just making our homes more green in the climate crisis. So obviously everyone speaks a lot about the energy efficiency improvements, but another thing to note about retrofit, and one of its most important aspects, are the well-being impacts that can arise from retrofit. So this can simply arise from just being in a home that's warmer, more comfortable, cheaper to heat, with fewer financial concerns. Obviously, it's nice to be living in a home that you can actually afford to have the heating on in. Retrofit can also be used to target issues like mold and damp. These issues in particular can have a lot of adverse health effects, especially on people who are vulnerable, so say they've got asthma or younger or older people. So now you know why you should consider retrofit, but what does the retrofit assessment process actually look like and entail? So at Building Energy Experts, we handle the first 4 stages of the retrofit assessment process. So let's say in this example, the first one is the brief. You come to us and we identify what do you feel the issues are with your home? We talk about insulation or your doors and your windows, anything like that. The next step, I'll go into more detail in exactly what a retrofit assessment is. It's basically a detailed and comprehensive assessment of the home. Then we follow that up with some further testing to diagnose any further issues. That's carried out alongside the survey. And then the final stage we carry out is coordination and design, where we look at remedial works that evenly consider cost and overall improvements to the home. So what is a retrofit assessment? A retrofit assessment is a full condition survey of the home, where we aim to collect holistic data on the overall state of the property. So in the assessment, one of the main things we look at is your building fabric. So your building fabric is basically referring to any individual component that makes up your home. So this can include anything like your doors, your windows, your walls, your heating system, your ventilation system, insulation, basically anything that makes up your home. We'll also look at the overall condition of your home. So that includes like looking for things like mold, damp, and condensation, which can then be attributed to issues with your building fabric. And then we'll also look for any structural concerns, whether that's cracks in the walls or ceilings, or kind of any other damage to the property. So, carried out alongside a retrofit assessment, we typically carry out retrofit testing. Does anyone kind of have any examples they can think of and provide of an example of retrofit testing? Any ideas? Feel free to put them in. Yeah, Jason, that's a good one. Air test. I saw you raised your hand, Keith. I think in terms of answers, if you've got access to the chat, just whack them in there, and I'll read them out from there. And then at the end, if you have any questions, you can put your hand up, and we can answer that then. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the main kind of retrofit tests we carry out. First one, as identified by Jason, is air tightness testing. I'll go into that in more detail. Then you've got cavity wall inspections, thermographic surveys, and part F ventilation testing. I'll discuss air tightness testing, cavity wall inspections, and thermographic surveys in this presentation. It's worth noting that part F ventilation testing is actually included in our retrofit assessments as standard. So that could include looking at things like extract fans in your bathrooms and kitchens, trickle vents in your windows, and then also looking at fan flow rates. Like I said, these are included in our retrofit assessment. We've got a lot of great blogs on our website if you want to read more about Part F and how it relates to retrofit and also air testing as well. So the first test we would look at is air tightness testing. So these are basically tests that measure the air permeability, or in simpler terms, they measure how drafty your property is. So how much of the warm air from inside is escaping out of things like your doors, windows, insulation, any other gaps. So there are multiple methods you can go about for air tightness testing. One of the main ones we use is a blower door test. You can see our MD jack with a blower door kit there. We basically set up a big frame in the doorway, and it creates a pressure difference between the inside and the outside of the property. And it's really good for diagnosing and seeing and identifying and quantifying exactly where air leaks are escaping. So common areas for air leakage, you're looking at things like skirting boards, doors, windows, around pipework, and how much of that draftiness is occurring. Another piece of kit we use is called a pulse kit. You can also see our MD jack with a pulse kit there. It's a large cylindrical piece of equipment that works very similar to a blower door kit, but it creates a pressure shock wave as opposed to a pressure difference. And it also allows you to identify air leakage. So either of these tests will provide an air permeability score. So this score is basically a figure that attributes how drafty your home is, how and kind of quantifies how much of that air is escaping and to what degree. For diagnostics, we would tend to recommend a blower door kit, as they allow for kind of further information. So for example of that, you've got an extract of one of our reports here. This isn't the full report, just an extract, but you can see where we've identified the problem. This is actually a problem that I think a lot of people don't think about when it comes to air tightness. I think people tend to think of doors and windows, but something that's really important to think about is pipework, plumbing. So as you can see in this resident's property, there was a large degree of air leakage around their toilet basin. So we highlight the problem, we highlight the solution, so introducing silicon, and then there's also pictures you can see there that kind of point to where the air leakage is occurring from. Next survey we may recommend is a borescope survey or a cavity wall inspection. Basically, this is our assessor here, Stan, using a borescope kit. But a drill is attached, a camera is attached to a drill that drills through the cavity hole in the wall, and basically allows you to visualize the internal wall. So when we're talking about insulation, that could be relating to the continuity of the insulation. So insulation has a habit of sinking down in the wall over the years. So these cameras are a really good way to visualize that. And they also allow you just to see the quality and degradation of the insulation that you have in the wall. So the output of this, we issue reports that provide internal images of the cavity, kind of general information about the wall thickness, the quality of the wall, and where the issues mainly lie. So here's an extract of one of our reports there. You can see the general information we've recorded regarding the wall thickness and the wall we're drilling. And then you can see the pictures on the right, the middle two, there are some gaps in the insulation there. So that's kind of a key place you would look at for air leakage escaping out, and for you kind of issues with keeping your home nice and warm. So the next survey we would be looking at is a thermographic survey. So thermographic surveys utilize thermal imaging cameras to kind of look at where air, or not where heat is escaping out of your property. So one of the main things that thermal imaging can be really useful for is identifying regions called thermal bridges. So thermal bridges, typically caused by gaps in insulation, highlight areas of quite drastic heat loss. And kind of identify areas that typically accrue a lot of mold, damp, and condensation because there is such a drastic change in the temperature. So if you look at this picture here, so these are kind of the output images you would get. This is just an extract from one of the reports we did. If you look around the bay window on the top left of the building, there are some areas where there's a very stark transition from green to red. So green is a colder temperature and red is the warmest. That stark transition between the two is called a thermal bridge. And that's the area where, because there's either a gap in the insulation or an issue with your doors and windows, you're going to see a lot of issues like mold, damp, condensation. It's really good to identify these and kind of get out ahead so you can sort them. So these tests together provide really, really useful insights alongside the assessment into how well your property's working, what isn't working, and what needs to be remedied. So now you know what a retrofit assessment is and retrofit testing is. How does it all fit together, and how do those kind of puzzle pieces kind of match? So let's say in this case study, a resident comes to us and they say that they feel their home is always cold, and they also feel that the heat is dissipating from their property quite quickly. So let's say they have their heating on for the night, they turn it off, and then they find that the heat just immediately leaves their property within half an hour. You know, they've spent that money and they've not really gained much from it. So in this case, the resident's goal is to get a warmer home and also a home that retains heat better and is therefore cheaper to heat. So the next step is the assessment. So let's say we send our assessor on site to complete that comprehensive, holistic view of the property, which is a retrofit assessment. And they note that there's condensation and mold growth around the windows, and they also find that the walls are quite cold to touch. So that's really useful information that we might look at in assessment. And then while on site, we follow that up with some testing. So our assessor, in this case study, let's say they carry out a borescope survey and an air tightness test while they're on site alongside their survey. So once you've got that information from the brief, what the resident wants to address, the retrofit assessment and the testing, it then leads on to the diagnostics. So let's say in this case study, the borescope survey has highlighted that the insulation is of poor continuity. So like we spoke about before, that can basically mean that the insulation is sunk down in the wall. So there's gaps where there's quite a lot of heat loss occurring through the walls. So that's where the assessor would have touched the wall and found it quite cold to touch. The air tightness test also shows that there's a large degree of air leaking around the doors and windows, particularly through the seals. So it may have been that they've been installed wrong, or they're just quite old doors and windows. So the kind of conclusion that you come to is that you've got a drafty property with quite high air permeability, and you've got issues with your insulation, and that's kind of the diagnostic you would reach. So once you've got that diagnostic, you've done the retrofit assessment, you've done the retrofit testing, you can then look to see what measures would best suit your home and what measures would be best for you. Can anyone give me an example of retrofit measures that they can think of? Just anything you can think of that would count as a retrofit measure. Yeah, solar panels is a good one. Yeah, air tightness is also a good one. Yeah, yeah. So retrofit measures, ventilation is also a good one. Um, uh, Retrofit measures are typically split into a few different categories, depending on what they aim to improve. So the first kind of method of retrofit measures you're looking at are fabric measures. So fabric measures are any change to the fabric or construction of your building. So that includes things like your insulation, your windows, doors, anything that addresses your air tightness. So like we discussed earlier, anything that kind of constitutes your building and its construction, that's a change to a fabric measure. Fabric measures are a really, really good way of making sure you're treating the root cause of what's kind of originating with the issues in your home and kind of making sure you address those diagnostics we provide. So the next measures you're looking at are service measures. So service measures can be any additions or changes to your home, like your heating system, your ventilation system, air conditioning if it's relevant for you, and any changes to the lighting where you switch to LELs. That picture there is an air source heat pump. Air source heat pumps are technically service measures. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about air source heat pumps these past few years. They're a really great service measure and heating system that you can use to retrofit your home. And then the next one, which is probably the one people know about the most, are renewable retrofit measures. So that can include anything like solar panels or solar water heating, where they use a renewable source to kind of keep your home energized and warm. All of these options are really, really great ways to retrofit your home. Kind of selecting the right method for you, that depends on your budget and your cost, kind of what you're looking to achieve, and kind of what you want to get out of the retrofit process overall. Cool. That's all from me. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope it's been helpful. For any further information, you can contact us directly on the information there, our email and our phone number. And if you're interested in any of our services, please feel free to get in touch. In terms of questions, we'll take them now. I'll pass back to Liv.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, do feel free to pop them in the chat, in the Q&A box, or you can unmute yourselves and ask them now. Yeah, has anyone got any questions for us? While we wait, I'll probably ask one of my own. Oh, Keith, actually, yeah, you can go ahead.
I won't lie, I don't know how to accept the raised hand thing.
Keith, if you just unmute yourself or pop a question in the chat.
While we're waiting for that, I'll just address Jason's question that he's put in the chat about the average cost of a retrofit. In terms of the average cost, it really depends on kind of what stage we're looking at. So at Building Energy Experts, where we handle the first stage, kind of the assessment, coordination, design, and testing, the price varies quite a lot depending on the services that you opt for. It's one of those things where it's good to get in touch with us, get a quote from us where we can provide some information. We can talk to you about your brief and kind of give you a price based on that. If you're ever really concerned about the costing of retrofit, there are some really, really great sources, especially kind of around the southwest area, that kind of lend funding. If you're based in Bristol at all, there is a company called Retrofit West, and I believe it's also North Somerset,
It's
where they
Bristol,
provide
Bristol, Bath, and North East Somerset.
Bristol, Bath, and North East Somerset, where they provide subsidised costs for retrofit works, like retrofit testing, so that could be thermography, air testing, ventilation testing, and then they also other retrofit plans and stuff. If you're looking into subsidised costs for assessments, I would get in touch with them. If you're in their catchment area, like I said, you can also get in touch with us. Once you get past the assessment stage, there are also lots of funding options for actually getting your home retrofitted. There's a really great charity. I'll put their name in the chat. They're called Lendology. They offer fixed interest loans to homeowners for home improvement works. They work nationwide. They're a really lovely bunch. I'll just put their name in the chat so people can get in touch with me.
Retrofit West is also South Gloucestershire as well. I missed that off, but those
South
are
Gloucestershire as well. In terms, just looking at Elizabeth's question, in terms of recommending installers of service measures, I can't think of any installers of service measures off the top of my head, but in terms of really great websites to find installers on, one of them that I would recommend, I'll just type it in the chat, is called Trustmark. If someone is kind of accredited, then they'll be on Trustmark. If you go to their search bar and search for business and just type in the installation method you're looking for, so if you're looking for solar panels or if you're looking for an air source heat pump, I would just type that in the search bar, put your area in, and everyone on Trustmark is accredited. They're all accredited bodies on there. That's a really great way to get like a full list. It's got a map so you can see how close they are to you. That's a really great way I would recommend to find installers of service measures. Let me just look.
I would also add to that, Retrofit West, if you are based in the west of England, they have a directory of installers as well.
Great. Yeah, that's a good one. Let me just look at Keith's question. I've solar panels since 2011 and EPC showed C, but I know the assessor never came near my home. Is this lawful? That's a good question, Keith. That's interesting. If you want more help with that, you can get in touch with us directly, as I'm not sure I fully understand the question regarding the assessor that came near your home. Feel free to get in touch with us and ask. You can email me directly or email the business, and I can help you with that if you would like.
They can I just add that they should have come to your home essentially. You have to for an EPC, unless it's a new build one, which is done through full SAP, you have to visit and assess the property.
Yeah, Keith. Yeah, just saw your message there. That doesn't sound ideal at all. If you want to get in touch with me, feel free, and we can provide some further insight. I'll just put my email in the chat there. We're more than happy to help. Feel free to get in touch with me there, and we can talk about that. So just looking at Jason's message, does your company arrange or manage the actual retrofit work? So Building Energy Experts, we arrange and carry out the assessment, testing, coordination, and design. So we can kind of get you to the stage where we recommend the measures you could install. So that's based on your budget, cost, and the overall energy efficiency improvements, but we're not installers, I'm afraid. So like Liv mentioned, there's that Retrofit West directory that has installers that are really great and work in the southwest area. And then you've also got Trustmark. I would go on there if you're looking for actual installers of retrofit work. But any questions regarding the assessment to design stage, feel free to get in touch with us and ask. Great.
Has anyone got any more questions they want to pop through before I ask a couple of my own? Yeah, I'll hop in with mine now, and then if anyone does have any more, they can pop them in the chat. But I was going to ask, if I was only going to get one of the additional tests on my home, which one would you recommend, Tegan?
In terms of the kind of testing method I would recommend, if you had to pick one of them, I'd probably pick air tightness testing. So if you get a blower door air tightness test alongside your retrofit assessment and also your ventilation testing, that provides a really holistic image on what's working in your home and what isn't. So air tightness testing, you can really find those leaks if they're there. And, air leakage can be attributed to a lot of issues, whether that's mold, damp, condensation. Kind of doing that alongside the retrofit assessment with our Part F testing, that's a really good way to get that holistic image of your home. That's probably the one that I would recommend the most if you could only opt for one or afford one.
Great, thank you. And one more question for you, and then I'll let everyone go, is why test? Like, what is the importance of testing and assessing before installing measures?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And honestly, it's a fair enough question, because you can look at the retrofit assessment process and the testing process, and you could say that's a kind of a bit of time, a bit of investment where maybe you have to take time off work to be there. And, you have to invest money in it. It's an investment that, you have to weigh up and think about. But the thing I'd say the most in terms of getting that assessment and testing done before the measures is it's really important when looking at retrofit to make sure you're treating the root cause. So say, for example, you could be interested in retrofitting your home and you say, I want solar panels. You stick the solar panels on, but if you've got issues with your insulation, your doors, your windows, anything else, kind of issues with air leakage or heat loss, or with your cavity wall, you're not actually treating what is attributed to your kind of expensive bills or your cold home or your heat loss. So I would say the assessment and testing allow you to make sure that your money is being spent in the right place. You're making sure that you're addressing the right thing and treating the right thing. So yeah, I'd say assessment and testing, there's absolutely an essential stage before you look at getting any measures installed.
Great, thank you. So I think we're wrapped up now, if no one's got any more questions at the moment. If you do happen to think of any after, feel free to pop us an email, give us a call. We're happy to help with anything. I've just seen Keith's
just saw Keith's question. If one single measure, which is it? See, that's it completely depends on your home. If you kind of go through the assessment and testing option, and you get to the coordination and design stage, that kind of design stage, it looks for the measure that best suits your home. So best suiting your home in terms of overall cost over time, and the installation, and then also the energy efficiency gains. I wouldn't be able to say kind of now, because I don't know an awful lot about your home, but I think kind of selecting that measure is a lot easier once you've had the assessment and testing done. Obviously, I realize it's probably not the answer you're looking for, but like I said, anything like that, feel free to get in touch with us.
Yeah, again, if you have any more questions, do pop us an email, give us a ring, and we'll do our best to answer them for you and give you any help we can. I'll wrap up now, but I'll be sending out the recording, so don't worry if you missed anything. You'll be able to watch it at your leisure. But yeah, thank you for coming, everyone. I hope you enjoyed and found it useful.
Thank you very much. Yeah, feel free to get in touch about anything at all.